Hello everyone, welcome! Today I'm creating a fall-time slimline card, and I'm using a beautiful stamp set from the Not Too Shabby shop. It's called Pumpkin Everything. And it is illustrated by Jamie, the owner of the Not Too Shabby shop. I really love the images in this stamp set because they're all arranged for you. You don't have to do any masking. They're already arranged beautifully. I'm going to stamp them onto a piece of Spectrum Noir smooth white cardstock because I'm going to be coloring them in with some Copic markers. I stamped the image several times to get a nice dark impression. I'm using some Simon Says Stamp Intense black ink to do this. I do end up stamping this image out again because I messed up the first go around on my coloring. I had selected some colors for the pumpkin and I didn't like how they were blending together. I played around a lot with my oranges until I found a blend that I really like. It's been a while since I've colored in pumpkin images, but it's very close to that time of year where we're going to start coloring in lots of pumpkins. I'm starting with my lightest color first and putting that down just to kind of wet the paper. My lightest color was YR21 or cream. And now I'm going in with a little bit of a darker color. It's called Honey, Y38. And then my dark orange color is YR07, and it's called Cadmium Orange. I go back and forth between these three pens, trying to get a smooth blend. And then when I'm done with this, I go in with a red Copic marker, my R24, which is called Prawn, and add my deepest, darkest shadows. And I put this marker down in just the smallest nooks and crannies to give my work some dimension and contrast. I will have all of the colors I use listed over at my blog if you're interested. But this was really fun to color in. I love this little composition. And here I go in with the red. It just makes the coloring really pop. I'm going to be using a complementary color to orange to color in one of the coffee cups. And I'm just going in with my lightest color first to wet the paper again, and then my medium color, and then my darkest color in just the smallest slivers, the edges of the cup. I'm also going to color in this cute scarf with the same markers. To add a little more interest, I'm going in with my medium color and adding stripes to the scarf. And then I'm adding stripes the opposite direction with my darkest teal color. And then I'm going back in and adding just a little bit of shading at the edges and where the scarf is tied. And then I'm coming in with a white Jelly Roll pen. I'm going to be adding lots of fun little details to this scene. The wrapper on my coffee cups, I'm just coloring in both of them with some browns or some E's. And then my second coffee cup, I'm going to leave white, but I am going to come in with some grays just to add a few shadows here and there. The grays I love to use best are the neutral grays or the ends, and I use those the most, I think. I'm also adding gray to the lids of the cups. And now to color in the stem of the pumpkin. You could also color it in with some E markers. I've seen other card crafters color in their pumpkin stems with browns, and that looks really pretty too. But I just wanted another little punch of color on this scene. I'm putting my darkest colors at the bottom and along the bottom of the stem. I wasn't sure if I wanted to leave the coffee cup white, so I let that sit, but this is where I come in with my gray markers, my ends. I didn't want to have too many colors going on in this scene. I wanted to keep it kind of simple. To keep the cup looking white, I'm just putting shadows in the tiniest nooks and crannies of the cup. And now for the leaves. This first leaf, I'm using some olive greens. I'm going to color in all of the berries with purple. And then this is going to be a very colorful leaf. I'm putting in some yellows and oranges and reds and a little bit of green at the top. And just kind of blending those colors together. Fall time leaves are really fun to color. My third leaf is just going to be a bunch of greens again. They're the same greens I used on the stem of the pumpkin. I'm going to put a little bit of color around my scene, and I'm using some of my favorite Copic markers. These are the E01, E00, and E000. It has just a nice tinge of pink to it. It's just so pretty. I put the E01 closest to the pumpkin and the cups and the leaves, and then I fade it out with the other two Copic markers. And I'm not taking the color all the way to the edge. But these markers just give a nice, pretty glow to the scene. Next, I'm going to add a few highlights with my white Jelly Roll pen. This is a size 10, and I think it's the largest size available. There are two smaller Jelly Roll pens, and I have those, but I never use them. I just like this larger size pen. This just adds a cute pop to the scene. I really love how this is turning out. It was such a fun stamp image to color in. And I'm going to add even more details now to this scene. I'm putting down some anti-static powder first, and then I'm coming in with my Versamark pen. This pen is really fun to use. I'm just going to put a little bit of clear, sticky ink down, first on the berries, and I'm not going to cover up all of the purple with my embossing powder, just little touches. And then I'm going to color over the veins of the leaves. I have a piece of type paper beneath my cardstock ready to catch the embossing powder. And I'm going to be pouring over some embossing powder by Wow. It's called Pearl Gold Sparkle. I just got this stuff and I love it. I have a similar color in silver, but I wanted a gold for this particular card. Gold embossing powder just goes perfectly with the fall time cards, I think. And now I can melt this embossing powder. And it's just the brightest, sparkliest gold. It's just beautiful. I end up adding a little more Versamark ink to my berries because it just didn't stick very well the first time. And now I'm going to cut out my scene with a Spellbinder's oval die. I'll wipe away the excess anti-static powder. And I'm going to put this aside for just a few minutes. I'm going to add some fun details and interest to the cardstock that's going to go behind my scene. I cut this out with a slimline die cut from Trinity Stamps. And now I'm going to use a Trinity Stamp slimline stencil. And I'll just tape this on the back of it. I'm going to put down 3 pieces of tape just so it stays in place. The ink I'll be blending on is called Mermaid Lagoon, and it's just a little bit darker than my cardstock. And I'm just holding the stencil in place and trying not to let it shift. But I want to put a nice dark coat down. I think that looks so pretty. I love stripes. Next, I'm going to add even more Jelly Roll pen on this panel. I'm adding more stripes with this pen, and it just adds a bit of light to this dark panel. I just love it. And I have to remind myself always just to have a very light touch with these Jelly Roll pens so that the ink will flow out of them. For my sentiment, I'm going to use these cute banner dies from Trinity Stamps. I'm cutting them out with more white cardstock. I'm going to use the curved one that you see there. The banners cut out separately, but you just have to glue those on. I'll just use a little dab of liquid glue to do this. There's a sentiment from this stamp set that says, "Coffee is always better with a friend," and it's a nice long sentiment, so it's just going to fit perfectly on this banner. I'm going to pull out my mini Misty, and I do have to manipulate this stamp a little bit to get it to curve. I'll put down a little bit of anti-static powder first, and then ink it up with some nice black Versamark ink. And the door of the Mini Misty just holds that curve in place really nicely. I'll ink it up a few times so it's nice and juicy. And then this time I'm just using some clear embossing powder. I just want the sentiment to look bold and shiny. And you can tell when it melts because it just gets nice and dark. My next step is to use a little bit of carved pumpkin distress ink over this. When you emboss your sentiment like this with clear embossing powder or whatever color, it ensures that it's not going to smudge when you blend ink over the top of it. And then make sure to polish the ink off of the plastic of the sentiment or the melted embossing powder with a clean cloth or a tissue. And that will just brighten it up once again. And now let's put this card together. I'm using a little bit of dot liner behind my blue panel. I have a white card base. This card will measure 8.5 by 3.5. And there will be a little sliver of a white border around this blue panel. I put some foam adhesive behind my pumpkin panel, and I'll center this on the blue cardstock. And then for my sentiment, I put 2 little pieces of foam adhesive on each end and then a little bit of liquid glue in the center just to keep that in place, and so it's the same level as my pumpkin panel. And now for my last touch, I'm going to add a few gold sequins to this panel. I keep all my sequins in their original packaging and then I just pour them out into my little tray. And I try not to go too crazy with the sequins. I usually just end up putting 3 along the card front. And it just adds a nice touch of gold that matches really nicely with the Wow embossing powder. And I'll adhere those to the card with a little dab of liquid glue. I put a little bit of washi tape on my card just to keep it down flat on my work mat. And then I just funnel them back into the packaging. And I have a little drawer that I keep all of my sequins in. And here is a close-up look at the finished card. I hope you like it and I hope you enjoyed this video. I have a 10% off coupon code for the Not Too Shabby shop in the description below. Thanks for watching, everyone, and happy fall time card crafting. Take care. Bye.